Now let's look at the different types of questions that you can expect to see on the academic IELTS reading. So I've already mentioned before that all the different questions that you see on the reading test are going to be different variations of one of these two question types. So at their base, at the very root of it, all questions are going to be either a variation of a fill in the blank question or a variation of the multiple choice question. Now, there are going to be certain question types that are going to appear in only specific reading passages. And the reason for this is that reading passages get progressively more difficult. So we've already talked about this as well, that reading passage number 1 is easier than reading passage number 2, and reading passage number 2 is easier than reading passage number 3. So because of this structure, you're going to see questions at different levels of difficulty as you progress through the test. So for this reason, there are going to be certain questions that only appear in reading passage number 3, but not necessarily in reading passage number 1. So this doesn't always happen, but oftentimes this is what happens. So you already know by now that the easy questions are typically in passage 1 and the harder questions are in passage number 3. So this is another reason why I recommend that when you are taking the reading test, don't skip and don't jump from one passage to the next or jump around in some random order. I would suggest that you progress through the reading test step by step, passage by passage. So start with passage number 1, then progress to number 2, and when you're finished with that, then move on to number 3. Now, the reason why examiners design these different questions with varying levels of difficulty is so that they can classify the students by their level of English. So by understanding how many questions you are getting correct or how many questions you're getting wrong, it's very easy to classify your level of English. So for this reason, you're going to find questions with a mixed level of difficulty, some easy and some much harder. Now, one of the key things that I've mentioned before about the different types of questions in the reading section is that some questions are going to be in order. So do you remember what that means? So in order means that the answer to question number 1 is going to come before the answer to question number 5 in a reading passage. So that's what I mean by order. You're going to find the answers in the certain sequence in which the questions appear. So number 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and you can expect to find the answers in the reading passage in exactly this order. But not all questions are like this. So first, let's take a look at what types of questions are in order. So these questions are always in order. These ones here, fill in the blank, multiple choice, short answer, yes, no, and not given, or you can also look at this as a true-false question. So these questions are always going to be in order. Now there are other question types as well, and these ones, they tend to be in order most of the times. Not always, but most of the times they are in order. And then finally, here are the questions that are not in order. So these are the questions for which the answer to number 5 might come before the answer to number 1. So you're not going to find the answers in the sequence in this case. So questions that are like this, that are not in order, include questions like matching, classification, headings, a question in which you'll have to pick 2 or 4 items from a list, and paragraph location questions. Now, I know that you probably don't know what some of these question types are, and that's totally fine. We're going to be looking at each one of these question types in much more detail very soon. But keep in mind that all of these different question types as many as they appear to be, are actually just different variations of either a fill-in-the-blank question or a multiple choice question. Now, you may have noticed here one thing about the colors. You may be wondering why certain question types are colored green and others are yellow and red. Why is that? That is because the questions in the reading test are going to be at different levels of difficulty. Some are going to be easy, so you should do these ones first. Others are going to be medium, and these ones you can do after the easy ones. And then finally, the ones in the red color, these are the hardest ones, so you should save them for last. Now, I want to give you an easy way to remember in-order questions. And this way, you're going to know which questions are going to be in order and which questions are not going to be in order, so that you can plan a better strategy so that when you are in the test answering these questions, it'll be much more easier for you to get the easy ones done first and then the difficult ones at the end. So, I tried to come up with a sentence that I thought would work well. I'm not sure how well this will work for you. Some of my students find this really helpful, but you'll just have to play around with it and see if this is something that works for you. So I created this sentence, and you're supposed to memorize this statement. And the sentence is, yes, I will fill multiple short charts and complete diagrams on the table in summer. So this sentence is a mnemonic. What that means is that this is a tool to help you memorize which questions are always in order and which questions are mostly in order. So these questions here, what these words represent, the questions that these words represent here in the blue color, are the questions that are always in order. Here in the purple color, we have questions that are mostly in order, most of the times. And then, of course, any questions that are not included here are going to be the questions that are not in order. So the word yes here stands for yes, no, not given questions, also known as true, false, not given questions. The word fill stands for fill in the blank questions. Multiple stands for multiple choice. Short stands for short answers, the short answer question type. Now, this is where you need to memorize where we have a break in the sentence. So this is where we have a break in the sentence. This is where we move from the always in order questions to the mostly in order questions. This is where the color changes from blue to purple. Now the charts, that stands for the flowchart questions. Complete stands for sentence completion. Diagrams stands for just diagrams. Table stands for table questions. And finally, summer, as you can see over here in the image, it's very hot over here. The sun is shining. The summer stands for the summary question type. So what you will need to do is probably repeat this sentence multiple times until you have memorized it, because this will be a powerful tool. It's going to make your job a lot easier when you know which questions are always in order and which questions are mostly in order. And of course, the questions that are not listed here, the questions that are not listed here are going to be the not in order questions. So memorize this sentence so that you can easily distinguish between the different types of questions. And perhaps you can have this image in your mind as well. It might help you to remember what the sentence is. Because here you can see that we have a boy who is sitting over here at a table, and this boy has agreed to fill multiple short charts. So these are little short charts, multiple short charts, and he is completing diagrams on the table, sitting on the table, and it is summertime. So with this image and with this sentence, you should have an easy way to remember which questions are in order, which ones are mostly in order, and which ones are not in order. So I hope that this mnemonic serves as a tool for you to help you memorize. If it doesn't, if this sentence doesn't work for you, then just find something else that does. Now, what I want to do next is I want to take you through each of the different question types so that you know what each one of these questions look like and how to identify them. So let's begin with our classic fill-in-the-blank question type. Now, we already know that this question type is always in order. You'll also notice that I have a little green dot over here. This is to indicate that this is an easy question type. The easy question types are indicated with this green color. The ones with medium difficulty are going to be yellow in color, and the ones that are the hardest, the difficult ones, they're going to be in the red color. So you're going to see them very soon as well, but here we have an example of a fill-in-the-blank question type. The way that you identify this question type is by simply looking at the blanks. When you have blanks like this and the question asks you to complete the sentences below, well, this is going to be a fill-in-the-blank question type. Now, the next question that is also in order is the multiple choice question. So in a multiple choice question, you have different options, different answer choices, A, B, C, and D, and all you have to do is simply pick the correct answer. So the way you identify that is by simply looking at what the question is asking you for, which is to choose the correct letter. Now, another always in order question is the short answer. And in this question, you're going to have different questions such as over here, and you have to write the answer. It's not a multiple choice where you simply pick a letter. In this case, you actually have to write the answer. In this case, you can see that the question is asking you to write no more than 2 words. So write 2 words or less, but not more than 2. And of course, this is the answer that you're going to be writing in your answer sheet. So that's how you identify the short answer question type. It's going to ask you to write the correct answer, which is going to be a short answer, only 1 or 2 or maybe 3 words. Now, the next question type is the yes, no, not given, also known as the true, false, not given question type. And here, you simply have to decide whether each one of these questions are true, false, or not given. If the statement agrees with the information, then the answer is going to be true or yes. If the statement contradicts, in other words, does not agree with the information, then it's going to be false or no. And finally, if there is no information given about what the question is asking for, then that is simply going to be not given. Information is not given in this case. So you have to decide which one is the right choice out of these 3 options. So the way to identify this question type is simply by looking at this portion over here. You're going to see this part in every question type that is a true, false, not given. Okay, so it's going to tell you right here that this is a true, false, not given question. Next, we have the flowchart question. Now, this one is mostly in order, mostly. And it's an easy one, as you can see with the green indicator here. In the flowchart question, what you have to do is simply answer the questions to describe a certain sequence or a certain process that happens. It seems that in this case, we are describing the sequence of Freya Stark's life. We're talking about how Freya Stark's life progressed. She was first born in Paris, then she had a formal education, then she did some work in Italy. So in a flowchart question, what you're going to see is you have to describe a certain sequence of events. It might be a chronology, it might be something related to history, it might be a mechanical process, or you might have to map out the major life events of some person. So this is a flowchart question type, and the way to identify this question type is simply by reading up here. It tells you that it's a flowchart. And you can see here by the arrows that this is a sequence of events that are unfolding one after the other after the other. Next up, we have sentence completion. This is also mostly in order. As you can see, this is of a medium difficulty. It's not too easy, but also not too hard. So in this question type, what you have to do is you have to complete each sentence with the correct ending. Basically, it's like a matching question where you just have to match the correct ending of the sentences. So here you have the first part of the sentence, and you simply have to complete the sentence by choosing the correct answer choice. The way to identify this question type is simply by reading up here. It tells you to complete each sentence. You can tell that this is a sentence completion question because these sentences are incomplete and you have to complete them by choosing the correct answers down here. Next up, we have the diagram question, mostly in order and of medium difficulty. Now this one is really easy to identify because it says label the diagram below, and there is a huge diagram over here. So you can't miss that. So very easy to identify a diagram question. And in the diagram question, what can happen is sometimes it might be a multiple choice question. Other times it might be a fill in the blank question. So in this case, it's a fill in the blank question where you have to write the correct answer. You have to write no more than 2 words in this case. But it could also be a multiple choice question. What could happen is that you might have a diagram on one side and next to it could be a little box with multiple answer choices. So in that case, you would simply have to match the correct answer with the corresponding question. Next, we have the table question. This one is also mostly in order and of medium difficulty. Again, this is also a rather simple one to identify. It says complete the table below, and you can see that there is a table down here. In this case, we have a fill in the blank question where you have to write out your answer. In this case, no more than 2 words. Our next question type is the summary question. It's easy to identify because it says complete the summary below. Basically, this is going to be a summary of the entire reading passage. So it is a condensed version, a summary of everything that you've read. And in this case, you have to fill in the blanks. But this question can also appear as a multiple choice question. So you simply have to complete the summary by choosing the correct answers. Now here we have a matching question, and this one is not in order, but it is still an easy one to answer. So in the matching question, all you have to do is match the correct answer choices to the corresponding questions. So in this case, you have 5 different answer choices from A through E, but you'll notice that there are only 4 questions. So this can happen sometimes. You might get a list of answer choices that are more than the number of questions. This simply means that one of them is not going to be used. On the other hand, you could also get answer choices such that they are less than the number of questions. So if there are 4 questions, there might just be 3 answer choices. And that simply means that one of the answer choices is going to be used twice. So that can happen. So just be aware of that. Now it's easy to identify this question type because it tells you to match each statement, so you know that this is a matching question. Next up, we have classification. This is sometimes in order, and it is also an easy question. So most of the times, this is not going to be in order, and you should not count on it, but very rarely classification questions can be in order, but usually they're not. So in this question, you know that you have to simply classify information. This is again just another variation of the multiple choice question type. So all you have to do is simply match the correct answer choices, letters A, B, or C, with the corresponding questions. So as you can see in this case, one or more of these answer choices are going to be used more than once, because we have 6 questions here and only 3 answer choices. Next, we have the headings question. This is a difficult question and it is also not in order, so you should save this one for last. And this question is really easy to identify because you're going to get a list of headings over here in a box, and the question is going to ask you to choose the correct heading. Now, it's asking us to choose the correct heading for paragraphs B through E. So those are 4 questions, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And here are the paragraphs that we're going to be answering for: B, C, D, and E. So 4 paragraphs and 4 questions. So for each one of those 4 questions, you have to write one of these answer choices. Now, some of them are not going to be used since there are only 4 questions. So you have to find out which ones are the right ones and which ones are not going to be used. So out of these answer choices, we're going to be using 4 of them, 1 for each of the paragraphs. So 1 for B, 1 for C, 1 for D, and 1 for E. And we're going to be writing down our answers in our boxes from 14 to 17 on our answer sheet. Okay, I hope that's clear. You're going to see more examples of this later down the road, so don't worry about it if not all of this is clear for you just yet. This is just a quick overview of the different question types. Now, the next question type is pick from the list, and this one is also not in order and a difficult one. And the way to identify this is by reading up here. It says choose 2 letters. And here we have our 2 questions for which we have to choose 2 letters. So we only have 1 question over here, which 2 are mentioned by the writer of the passage, but actually these are 2 questions because we have to write 2 answers for this question. We have to answer question number 11 and question number 12. So for this question, you're going to be choosing 2 answers from this list of multiple choices. And our final question type, this is the paragraph location question, another one that you should also save for last because it's not in order and also difficult. The way to identify this question is to look out for this part. The question asks you which paragraph contains the following information. So you have to locate which paragraph you're going to find the answer in. Okay, paragraph location. You have to locate the correct paragraph. In this case, we are talking about 7 paragraphs between A through G. So A, paragraph B, paragraph C, paragraph D, E, F, and G. But even though we have 7 paragraphs, we only have 4 questions. So this means that some of the paragraphs are not going to be used. Out of those 7 paragraphs, we're only going to be using 4 of them. Only 4 of them are going to match up with these 4 questions here. So that's all for the different types of questions. I hope that this gives you a good overview of what to expect from each question type. In the future, we're going to be looking at exactly how to answer each one of these different question types. We're going to start by first looking at how to answer the fill in the blank question type.